Spells and Blood Part 2. Chapter 9. Whispers of the Mirror Gate. The forest around them felt heavier by morning. Every tree stood still, every leaf too silent. Even the birds had vanished, as if nature itself knew something had been awakened. The ashes of the vampire's safe house still burned in the distance, choking the wind with the scent of magic and ruin. Rosamund sat beside Elene's sleeping form, watching her chest rise and fall beneath the patched cloak. The girl looked younger than Rosamund remembered, her face thinner, hair tangled, lips cracked. But she was alive. Barely. Eric stood at the edge of the camp, scanning the horizon, blade in hand. Not speaking. Not resting. Rosamund finally asked, "When do you sleep?" He didn't turn. "When it's safe." "And when is that?" He did turn then, meeting her gaze with eyes that looked far older than his face. "Never." The girl stirred with a low moan. Rosamund leaned forward quickly. "Elene," she whispered. "You're safe. You're with me now. It's over." Elene's eyes fluttered open, gold-flecked, haunted. Her voice was raw. "You came." Rosamund swallowed the lump in her throat. "Of course I did." Elene tried to sit up. Eric stepped closer, but Rosamund raised a hand. She wanted Elene to see a familiar face first. One that didn't wear a sword on his hip. "What did they do to you?" Rosamund asked gently. "They made me dream," Elene whispered. "Again and again. They fed me blood laced with memory spells. Showed me images of the mirror gate. Asked how to open it. I told them nothing. I swear it." "You don't need to swear anything," Rosamund said. "You survived. That's enough." But Elene shook her head. "No. You don't understand. The dreams, they weren't false. Some were mine. Some were real." Eric crouched down beside them. "Tell us what you saw." Elene's voice dropped to a whisper. "I saw a gate made of glass and bone. Hanging in the void. Behind it, wings. Eyes. Fire. Something old. Something angry. I think it's been waiting. Watching." "Waiting for what?" Rosamund asked. "For us," Elene said. "For witches to open the seal. The vampires can't do it alone." Later, after Elene fell back asleep, Eric and Rosamund sat a short distance from the fire, their backs to a tree. The night before had drained them both, and still, either slept. "She's telling the truth," Rosamund said. "She's seen the gate." Eric nodded. "And if the Blood Court gets what it wants, then we've been dancing to their tune for 100 years. He looked at her. "Do you still think marrying you was the only reckless thing I've done?" Rosamund cracked a small, bitter smile. "That depends. How much worse can it get?" Eric turned his head slightly. His voice was quieter now, different. Almost human. "When I was 16, my mother tried to assassinate the Thornfire matriarch. She failed. Got captured. She died in a Thornfire cell. I grew up hating your bloodline more than my own." Rosamund didn't flinch. "My father was killed by an Ashbane shadow hex in front of me. I was 12. They sat in silence, surrounded by ghosts. Finally, Eric said, "But you still spared me in that duel at the ravine." "I didn't miss," she replied. "I chose not to kill you." He gave her a look. "Why?" "I don't know," she admitted. "Maybe I didn't want to be the kind of witch they expected." Marin returned just before dawn, out of breath and bleeding from a shallow cut along her shoulder. "They're hunting," she said. "I saw 3 Blood Court scouts south of the marsh ruins. They know we were there. They're tracking our scent." Eric stood. "We move in 2 hours." "Not yet," Marin said. "Before I left, I found something." She pulled a charred scrap of parchment from her coat, still warm with faint enchantment. Rosamund took it and unrolled it carefully. It was part of a vampire ritual script, translated into witch tongue, and written in Thornfire's spell hand. Rosamund felt the blood drain from her face. That's impossible. Eric looked at her. You recognize the handwriting? She nodded. It's my aunt, Lady Breonna. She's been on the Thornfire Council for over 20 years. And she's working with the Blood Court, Eric said. Rosamund looked at him, voice shaking with rage. She helped them take Eileen. She's helping them open the gate. The fire crackled softly between them as the three sat in silence. Finally, Merrin said, We can't take this back to the covens, not yet. If we accuse the wrong person without proof, they'll say we are the traitors. Rosamund stood. Then we go to Breonna directly. Eric raised a brow. Interrogation? Rosamund shook her head. Confrontation. If she's part of this, she'll lead us to the others. And if she's not, she'll tell us who is. Merrin grinned. I like this version of you. Eric stood beside Rosamund. We'll need a cover story to get close. I have one, Rosamund said. A very good one. Eric narrowed his eyes. Which is? She smirked. We tell her. I'm pregnant. And I want the baby raised in Thornfire. Merrin burst out laughing. Eric stared at her, deadpan. Let's hope she doesn't demand proof. Rosamund turned toward the sunrise, eyes sharp. We leave at nightfall. Chapter 10, The Lie That Opens Doors. By moonrise, they were in Thornfire territory. Eric traveled cloaked, silent, and invisible in the shifting fog, a concealment charm borrowed from Merrin. Rosamund rode ahead alone, her chin high, her expression crafted with care, part exhaustion, part vulnerability, part triumph. It was all calculated. She wore the formal traveling cloak of a Thornfire ambassador, the sigils freshly sewn. A small glamour veiled her binding mark from view. A lie had never felt so heavy on her skin. The fortress stood like a dark crown atop the hills, towers spiked with iron charms, glowing with red war light. Thornspire had once been her home. Now it looked more like a prison dressed in nostalgia. As the gates opened for her, Rosamund inhaled the familiar scent of smoke, herbs, and cold stone. She hadn't set foot inside in nearly a year, not since the Ashbane ambush had burned her convoy and changed the course of her life. The guards stiffened when they saw her. One of them whispered, She lives? Another, She's bound to Ashbane. I thought she was taken. Rosamund said nothing. Let them whisper. Let the legend grow. The main chamber was filled by the time she stepped inside. Rosamund had sent word ahead, requesting an immediate audience with Lady Breonna, her aunt and matriarch of the Eastern Thornfire Circle. 12 council members waited beneath the arched ruins of the high chamber. All wore ceremonial black, adorned in rings of red jade and carved bone. Most masked their surprise. Some didn't bother. Breonna, seated at the center, rose slowly. Rosamund. Her voice was smooth, familiar, dangerous. You return not with an army, but alone. Bound by rumor. Thought dead. And now, here? I bring news, Rosamund said, her voice clear. And a request. The room leaned forward. Rosamund placed her hand over her abdomen, just above where the binding mark lay hidden. I'm with child. Gasps fluttered around the circle like birds startled from a graveyard. Breonna's face revealed nothing. Whose child? She asked calmly. Rosamund hesitated for a beat. Then spoke the most dangerous lie of her life. Eric's. The room erupted into argument. Heir to Ashbane? She's gone mad. It's a trick. Silence, Breonna commanded. The room quieted instantly. Rosamund stepped forward. The war is failing. We've all seen it. The Ashbanes bleed. We bleed. And while we destroy each other, the blood court grows stronger. I've seen it with my own eyes. They experiment. Torture. Breathe spells into our bones. You were captured. Someone hissed. Your mind is not your own. I was captured, Rosamund agreed. But I escaped. And I returned, not to surrender, but to save the coven I still love. She looked directly at Brionna. I want the child raised Thornfire. I want sanctuary for us both. And I want to speak, privately, with you, Aunt. The doors closed behind them. The private chamber was lined with old spell mirrors and darkwood shelves of ancient tomes. Candles burned low. The scent of sage and bloodroot hung in the air. Brionna moved to the center, hands clasped, watching her niece with too much calm. You're not pregnant, she said flatly. Rosamund allowed the mask to slip, just slightly. No. Brionna turned slowly. Then why the lie? Because it was the only story you'd let in. Brionna stared at her a moment longer. Then, she smiled. You always were clever. I need to know what you've done, Rosamund said. With the blood court. The listener spells. The sigils. The forged script in vampire hand. Brionna didn't deny it. Why? The vampires offered what the covens never could, Brionna said. Order. Vision. Power beyond endless blood feuds. You handed over our people. I handed over weakness, she said. You saw the safe house. You saw the girl. But do you know what the blood court really wants? The mirror gate, Rosamund said. Yes. And once opened, it will rewrite our world. We won't be hunted by mortals, feared by each other. We'll be reborn. Rosamund stepped closer, heart pounding. You believe that? Brionna's voice dropped to a whisper. I've seen what waits behind the gate. It knows us. It calls to us. And it will burn away the broken past. Join me, Brionna said. Come back into the fold. Bring Eric if you must. But stop chasing ghosts. The gate is the future. Rosamund hesitated. She had to play it carefully. I'll consider it, she said. But I need to speak with Eric first. Alone. Brionna nodded. Good. I was hoping you'd say that. Then she turned and tapped a sigil on the wall. A hidden door slid open, revealing two Thornfire witches holding Eric, chained and gagged, magic suppressors around his throat and wrists. Rosamund's blood ran cold. Brionna's smile sharpened like a dagger. You didn't think I'd let you walk in here without watching the shadows, did you? Chapter 11, The Prisoner and the Pact. Eric didn't flinch. Even bound, gagged, and stripped of his weapons and magic, he stood tall, shoulders squared, gaze sharp with unspoken fury. Rosamund's heart lurched at the sight of him, though she masked it well. She turned to Brionna, keeping her voice even. You captured him? I anticipated him, Brionna replied. I've known you long enough, Rosamund. You've always had a weakness for fixing things, broken spells, broken alliances, broken men. Rosamund met her gaze, ice in her voice. And you've always had a talent for poison disguised as wisdom. Brionna gave a small laugh. We are what the war made us, darling. She walked toward Eric, circling him like a wolf around a bound deer. You could have been an asset, Lord Ashbane. But instead you chose her. Your enemy. Your bride. Eric's eyes never left Rosamund. He didn't need to speak. She could feel what he was thinking, the bond between them pulsing just beneath her skin. He was telling her not to give herself away. Not to try anything foolish. So naturally she did. Rosamund stepped forward, pulling a silver pendant from around her neck, the deca charm Marin had given her. It shimmered faintly with forged Thornfire runes and truth-warping spellwork. I didn't betray the coven, she said loudly. I brought him here as a bargaining piece. Brionna arched a brow. Did you? He came willingly, of course, Rosamund added. But under false pretenses. I used the story of the child to lure him here. The Ashbane leader in Thornfire hands? We could end the war tonight. Brionna studied her carefully. And yet, you look at him as if you still belong to him. I do belong to him, Rosamund said softly. As much as he belongs to me. That's how the bond works. But bonds can be broken. Brionna's expression twisted. You would break your binding? I would, Rosamund lied. If it meant protecting Thornfire from the same fate as Red Hollow. That got Brionna's attention. What do you know about Red Hollow? Rosamund didn't answer directly. Instead, she walked toward Eric and brushed her fingers against his jaw, seeming casual, but whispering a spell beneath her breath. A subtle counterhex. A release trigger buried inside a fire glamour. She needed to mask the unbinding glyphs while distracting the watching witches. Eric met her touch with a flicker of surprise, but said nothing. Not yet. Brionna's eyes narrowed. You walk a dangerous line, Rosamund smiled. So do you. Later that night, they locked Eric in a ritual-holding cell beneath the spire, surrounded by Silverian forced stone, warded walls, and 2 elite Thornfire sentinels. What they didn't know was that Rosamund had hexed the chains herself. They looked real. They felt real. But at the right command word, they would fall away like threads. She just needed the right moment. As midnight approached, Rosamund returned to Brionna's private chamber. Her aunt stood near the window, speaking quietly into a mirror, one that shimmered with faint vampiric script before going dark. Rosamund stepped in without knocking. You're still in contact with them, she said. Brionna didn't deny it. I made a choice. We all did. The blood court will rise whether we join them or not. I'd rather rule in the shadow than burn in the sun. Rosamund walked closer. So you'd hand them witches like Eileen? Like me? I'd hand them what's necessary, Brionna said calmly. For the greater spell. The mirror gate isn't power, Rosamund hissed. It's a prison. And you're helping unlock it. Brionna turned cold and queenly. Then you'll stand with us. Or you'll be erased. Rosamund walked away from that conversation with one thought: we leave tonight. She returned to the dungeons at the changing of the guard. Only 1 sentry remained now, dozing, magic-dampened wine in hand, courtesy of a sleeping charm she'd slipped to the wine steward. Eric looked up as she entered, wordless but sharp-eyed. She spoke the command. The chains melted away, vanishing into ash. He caught her as she stepped into the cell and pulled her into a tight grip, not a kiss, not a plea, just acknowledgement. We have 5 minutes, she said. I need 2, he replied, already checking for his weapons. They moved like fire. They crept through passageways Rosamund hadn't walked in years, hidden alcoves, servant paths, forgotten hallways once used by her as a girl to sneak out for midnight spell practice. Now they were her lifeline. They reached the old watchroom when the alarm sounded, a piercing bell layered with blood magic, calling every witch in the spire to arms. Someone saw us, Eric muttered. Then we run. But as they turned the final corner, 3 Thornfire witches appeared, cloaked in crimson, spells already forming at their fingertips. Rosamund raised her hands and blasted the ceiling. Stone collapsed between them, sealing the corridor behind in a cloud of dust and smoke. Go! She shouted. Eric grabbed her hand, and they vanished into the night. They collapsed near a stream beneath a circle of dead trees, breathing hard, robes scorched, hands trembling from the magic drain. You lied well, Eric said finally. She looked at him. So did you. He smiled, a rare, real one. You came for me. I had to, she replied. Because of the bond? Rosamund hesitated, then shook her head. Because I wanted to. Eric went quiet. And in the silence, the truth settled between them like smoke from a long burning fire. Chapter 12. The Fire Between Us. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. Rosamund could still hear the echo of the alarm bells behind them, like a phantom sound that rang in her ears long after they'd crossed the border. The adrenaline had faded, but the ache remained, in her limbs, in her bones, and deep in the hollow of her chest where trust used to be. Eric sat beside her, shirt torn, arm bloody from a graze near the shoulder. She'd healed most of it with a muttered spell and trembling hands. The rest would scar. They hadn't spoken since collapsing beneath the trees. Now, as the pale light of dawn filtered through the tangled branches above them, she finally broke the silence. You could have died back there. Eric didn't look at her. So could you. I lied for you. To my own coven. To Brionna. He met her gaze now, steady, unreadable. And I let you. She stared at him for a long moment. That's not gratitude. It's respect, he said. You didn't owe me anything. But you did it anyway. A pause. Then he added, quieter, thank you? Rosamund looked away, jaw tight. She didn't want to feel the warmth rising in her throat. She didn't want this bond, the one they hadn't chosen, to feel anything like real. But it did. And that terrified her more than Brionna ever could. They reached the temporary hideout by dusk, a makeshift glen hidden by illusion spells in the roots of a hollowed tree, where Meryn and Eileen waited. Eileen was stronger now, her eyes brighter, her voice steadier. She sat cross-legged by the fire, drawing protection runes in the dirt with a stick. Meryn greeted them with a snort. Well, well, she said. Still alive? I suppose that counts as a miracle. We were almost caught, Rosamund said. Brionna knew everything. She's working with the Blood Court openly now. I saw her speaking through a vampire mirror. Meryn's expression darkened. That's not just betrayal. That's pact magic. Those mirrors drain more than memory, they share blood essence. She's not just allied. She's bound. Rosamund's gut turned. We need proof, Eric said. Something undeniable. Something we can bring to both covens. Meryn pulled a scroll from her satchel and tossed it onto the firelit grass. You'll want to read this, then. Rosamund opened it slowly. Her eyes scanned the text, dense, coded, laced with vampiric glyphs and coven seals. What is it? Eric asked. A map, she replied. To the Mirror Gate. The scroll contained a ritual diagram embedded with coordinates, old land markers, celestial alignments, blood-tied predictions. At the center, a twisted circular seal inscribed with 7 broken names. One of them, Rosamund recognized. Her own mother's. She was one of the warders, Rosamund whispered. She helped seal the gate after Red Hollow. And if Brionna opens it now, Meryn said grimly, she'll undo everything the last generation died to protect. Eileen looked up from the runes she'd been drawing. They're planning a mass ritual. A convergence of bloodlines. Vampires can't open the gate without witches. They need both sides. And now that you've bonded, you're the perfect vessels. Eric's jaw clenched. They'll come after us. Rosamund folded the scroll and tied it tight. Then we strike first. That night, as the fire burned low and Meryn took first watch, Rosamund sat beside Eric beneath a crooked ash tree. Eileen slept beside the fire, her breathing slow and steady. The forest was calm again, but only on the surface. Eric leaned back against the tree, eyes half closed, voice low. When we bonded, I didn't expect to feel anything. Rosamund didn't answer. I thought I'd control the war. I thought marrying you would end the bloodshed by force. She turned slightly toward him. And now? I feel like I'm in the eye of a storm I helped create. Rosamund swallowed hard. She understood that too well. She reached out slowly, cautiously, and laid her hand over his. The magic between them surged, a quiet thrum, not violent this time, not forced. It didn't burn. It warmed. Maybe the bond isn't a curse, she whispered. Maybe it's a weapon. He looked at her, eyes dark in the firelight. Then let's use it. Far away, in a hall of obsidian glass beneath a mountain carved by blood, a vampire lord stood before a map of the realms. His eyes glowed faintly crimson as a cloaked figure whispered in his ear. They escaped, the figure said. But not for long. The vampire lord smiled, revealing pearl-white fangs. Let them run. Let them gather hope. He touched a black crystal on the map, and the symbol of Ashbane flared red. Then he touched Thornfire. Then Rosamund's name etched itself across both. They are the key, he said softly. And all keys eventually turn. Chapter 13, The Hollow Crown. The road to the ruins was overgrown with bramble. Old Thornfire patrol paths once wound through these hills, but now the grass was too tall, the birds too quiet, and the shadows too long. No one came here anymore, not witches, not hunters, not even the Blood Court's spies. Which made it the perfect place for a secret meeting. Eric walked ahead, blade in hand, eyes scanning the trees. Rosamund followed, one hand on the scroll Merrin had given her, the other brushing her binding mark as if the bond might whisper a warning before danger struck. Eileen stayed at camp with Merrin, protected by illusion runes and decoy charms. They couldn't risk bringing her. Not yet. Not until they knew whether the person they were meeting was friend or enemy. The ruins lay at the foot of a crumbling hill, half swallowed by ivy and roots. Rosamund recognized the stonework, pre-split architecture, when Ashbane and Thornfire covens built sanctuaries together. At the center stood a cracked throne made of blackstone. Around it, 7 carved sigils, one for each of the founding bloodlines. Her own included. Eric knelt and touched the stone. You can still feel it. The old magic. Buried under betrayal, Rosamund said softly. A whisper of wind stirred the trees. Then a voice. You came. They turned. A man stood at the edge of the clearing, tall, cloaked in forest-woven armor, runes painted across his bare forearms. His eyes were gold, like Eileen's, but older, burned out with visions too ancient to forget. Eric stepped forward. You're him. Malric. The man nodded once. Former Thornfire High Seer. Exiled. Forgotten. Still alive. Rosamund frowned. You were banished by the council. For seeing too much, Malric said. I warned them about the Blood Court's infiltration 20 years ago. They called me a traitor. Said I was spreading fear. And now? Eric asked. Malric reached into his cloak and drew out a medallion, a perfect match to the one burned into Rosamund's dream. The symbol from her vision in the fire. I've been watching the seals, Malric said. And one of them cracked 3 nights ago. Malric led them to a stone circle just beyond the hill, hidden beneath a canopy of blackthorn trees. The grass here was scorched. The earth bore 7 carved runes, one of them now split down the center. This was the 3rd seal, Malric said. There were 7, forged in blood, bone, and memory. One for each founding bloodline. They kept the mirror gate locked. Rosamund felt a chill. If one is already broken, then it's begun, Malric said. And only the bonded heir of both covens can stop the rest from falling. He looked at Rosamund and Eric. You. Rosamund stepped back. I never asked for any of this. You were born into it, Malric said. Both of you. The war, the bond, the gate, it's all tied to your names, your blood, your ancestors' mistakes. Eric's voice was quiet. What happens if the gate is opened? Malric's gaze darkened. There's something on the other side. Not just power. Not just knowledge. Something waiting. Something old enough to remember the world before magic. And it wants back in. Rosamund looked at Eric. And Brionna is opening it. For the Blood Court. Malric nodded. She's already broken 2 seals. The third was bound to Rosamund's mother. That one cracked when you fled Thornfire. Meaning I triggered it. Rosamund said, voice hollow. No, Malric corrected. The bond did. Your union reactivated the legacy magic. The binding awoke the slumbering spells. Eric exhaled. So we didn't just change the war. We changed the rules, Malric said. Back at camp, Merrin listened to the story with narrowed eyes, arms crossed, a blade between her fingers she flipped without looking. Malric's useful, she said at last. But don't trust him. He once gave a prophecy that killed 2 coven heirs. Eileen added softly, we need to protect the remaining seals. There's no protecting them now, Malric said. Only choosing how they fall. Rosamund stood. Then we need to find the 4th seal. Get there before Brionna. Before the Blood Court. Eric looked up. Where is it? Malric hesitated. Then said quietly, buried beneath the ruins of Red Hollow. In the depths of a crimson palace carved into a mountain of bone, Brionna knelt before a black mirror pulsing with blood light. My niece escaped, she said. She travels with Eric. The seer girl remains with them. The voice that answered was not a voice at all, but a whisper that scraped the inside of her mind like blades on stone. Let her run. Let her gather the others. The seals require blood. We are patient. Brionna bowed. Then what is your command? The mirror's surface rippled, revealing the face of a creature with no eyes, only teeth. Send the hollow ones. Let them take the 4th seal. And bring me the fire-born girl, alive. Chapter 14. The Memory That Fights Back. Red Hollow was a wound on the land. Even centuries later, nothing grew here. No trees. No moss. Not even weeds. The soil was gray. The stones were cracked and scorched, as if the fire that devoured the village still lingered somewhere beneath the surface, waiting for air. Rosamund stepped lightly over the broken remnants of a stone well, half collapsed. Its bricks were still blackened. This was the center, she whispered. I remember hearing stories, ritual songs sung here. Babies named under moonlight. A haven between covens. And then it burned, Eric said beside her, scanning the horizon. Because someone wanted it forgotten. Merrin crouched nearby, running her hand through the dry soil. There's no wind, she muttered. Not even whispers. Eileen, still weak but walking, stood at the edge of a scorched archway. The air is thick with silence. Eric nodded. The kind that waits. They moved slowly through the ruins, guided by the scroll Malric had given them, tracking the celestial alignment inscribed into the stone pillars. When moonlight struck a certain wall, a sigil flared to life, a circle divided into 4 lines, each representing one of the covens that once stood united. The seal was near. Rosamund paused beside a broken doorframe where children had once played. Why here? She murmured. Why bury a seal in the ashes of betrayal? Malric's voice came from behind. Because memory lives in ruin. The seals weren't just protection. They were reminders of what happens when we forget who the real enemy is. The wind shifted. Finally. And with it came a sound. Click. 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 Like bone on bone. like teeth chattering behind a wall, like fingernails scratching the inside of a skull. Merrin rose slowly. We're not alone. From the tree line they emerged, the hollow ones. Figures in torn robes, eyes sunken, mouths sewn shut. Their skin was pale and stretched, their movements jerky and unnatural, like puppets half remembering how to be human. Blood-stitched revenants, Eric said under his breath. Created by the Blood Court to guard their rituals. They don't think. They only repeat. What do they repeat? Rosamund asked, already summoning fire to her palms. Eileen's voice was barely a whisper. Death orders. The hollow ones raised their arms. They moved as one. Eric drew his sword, steel runed with Ashbane glyphs, and met the first revenant with a clean slash through the chest. But the creature didn't fall. Instead, it staggered backward and laughed, a sound that echoed without a mouth. Rosamund hurled fire. It stuck. Flames wrapped around the hollow one, but it kept moving. They don't die like this, Merrin shouted. You have to burn the tongue inside the body. Eric kicked another back. They don't have mouths. They do, Merrin said grimly. Just not on their faces. With no time to ask what she meant, Rosamund focused her magic into a tighter flame, one that pierced instead of burned. She struck a hollow one through the chest, and for a moment, it froze, then collapsed in silence. No smoke. No cry. Just dust. That's the core, Rosamund muttered. Fire through the chest. Aim straight for the ribcage. Eileen threw up a barrier of silver light as three more lunged at them from behind. Malric's staff struck the ground, releasing a ripple of anti-magic that stunned the revenants for a few seconds. It was enough. They cut the remaining hollow ones down. And then, the wind stopped again. The ruins quieted. At the base of a half-fallen altar, the scroll's markings pulsed gently. Malric approached it, hands glowing faintly with ward-breaking light. He motioned to Rosamund and Eric. Only blood can open it, he said. Yours. Rosamund stepped forward, slicing her palm. Eric did the same. Together, they placed their hands on the broken stone. It lit up in a deep violet glow. The earth trembled. The stone split down the middle, and from it rose a crystal shard, etched with runes that shimmered between witchlight and bloodlight. Rosamund stared at it, breath catching in her throat. That's it, she whispered. The fourth seal. Don't touch it, Malric warned. Not until it's been too late. Rosamund's hand brushed the crystal by instinct. A vision slammed into her mind like a scream. She saw a black sea, filled with thousands of pale, reaching arms. A floating gate, made of twisted mirror and bone, turned toward her like a face. Eyes opened across the surface. Mouths whispered in languages that had no beginning. Behind it, wings. A throne. A thing without shape, breathing in reverse. Watching her. Break the seal, it whispered. We will make you queen. She ripped her hand back and collapsed. Eric caught her before she hit the ground. Rosamund gasped, trembling. They know. The gate, it sees us. Malric nodded grimly. Then we're running out of time. Merrin picked up the crystal with iron tongs and sealed it inside a binding case. Eileen knelt beside Rosamund. You touched it. You heard it. I heard everything, Rosamund said softly. And it's already starting to open. Far from Red Hollow, in the depths of the Blood Court's temple, Breonna opened her eyes and bled from one nostril. She touched the seal, she said. The vampire lord nodded. She's more powerful than we expected. Breonna swayed on her feet. The mirror gate whispered to her. And what did it say? Breonna's voice was hollow. It offered her a throne. Chapter 15, The Bond That Bleeds. They didn't sleep that night. Even after sealing the crystal shard in Malric's protective box, the ground beneath Red Hollow felt wrong, as if the soil remembered the fire, and the fire remembered the screams. Back at camp, Rosamund sat near the dying embers of the fire, staring at her hand. The one that had touched the seal. The one still trembling. Eric watched from the other side of the flame. He hadn't spoken much since they returned. But his gaze never left her. "I saw something," she said at last. "When I touched the seal." He leaned forward. "What?" Rosamund shook her head. "Not a prophecy. Not a memory. Something alive. It looked through me. It wanted me." Eric's voice was quiet. "It offered you a throne." She met his eyes. "You heard?" "I felt it." Through the bond. That admission hit harder than she expected. "So the bond is stronger now," she murmured. Eric nodded. "Stronger than it should be." Rosamund stood, pacing. "Malric said the seals weren't just locks, they were memory markers. If that's true, and if the bond is feeding on them, then we're part of the ritual now," Eric finished. "Whether we want to be or not." Rosamund stopped pacing. "Do you think it's coincidence? That we were the ones left alive? The heirs who survived every attack, every betrayal?" Eric's eyes hardened. "I used to think I was chosen to lead. Now I wonder if I was just chosen to bleed." Rosamund knelt beside the fire and whispered a word in the old tongue. Her flames turned violet for a moment, flickering toward her skin. Then she reached into the fire with her bare hand. Eric tensed, but said nothing. When she pulled it back, the flames clung to her fingers. "I can feel something waking up inside me," she said. "It's not just power. It's memory. Something my ancestors buried." Eric looked down at his wrist, where the bond mark shimmered faintly, almost pulsing like a heartbeat. "I feel it too." By morning, Marin had finished decoding the map from the fourth seal. It led not to another location, but to a name, a witch long thought dead. "Nyara of the Hollow Crown," Marin said. "She was the last to touch the fifth seal before it was hidden. She was executed by Thornfire," Rosamund said. "No," Malric replied. "That's the story they fed you." She fled. Disappeared. And she took the seal's core with her. Eric frowned. "Where is she now?" "Rumor says she became something else," Marin murmured. "A fire witch turned necromancer. Banished for touching the gate once before. If she's alive, she's the only one who can tell us what happens when it fully opens." Rosamund looked at Eric. "We find her." Marin raised a brow. "And if she's dead?" Eric stood. "Then we raise her." Rosamund wandered from camp, needing space, needing air. She stood at the edge of a shallow stream that glittered beneath the trees. In the water's reflection, she saw herself, stronger than she remembered. Angrier too. Eric appeared behind her. She didn't turn. "She said I'd wear a crown?" Rosamund whispered. "I know. And part of me wanted it." That silence stretched. Finally, Eric said, "I'd follow you. If you took it." Rosamund turned then, her voice low. "Even if it meant turning against Ashbane?" He stepped closer. "Ashbane doesn't exist without you now." Their eyes locked. No spells. No lies. Just truth. She reached up and touched the bond mark on his neck. It shimmered beneath her fingers. And for the first time since their marriage, Rosamund kissed him. Not for show. Not for magic. For herself. Far to the north, in a ruined temple buried beneath black vines and dead trees, a woman sat on a cracked throne of bone and ash. Her eyes opened, glowing violet. She exhaled smoke. "So," she said softly, "the bond has ripened." Nyara of the Hollow Crown had awakened, and the fifth seal pulsed in the dark. Chapter 16. The Witch in the Withered Vale. The forest changed as they moved north. The leaves grew blacker, veined with silver rot. The trees twisted toward the sky like they were trying to escape the soil. Even the light dimmed, sunlight filtering through the branches in thin, sickly strands like dying thread. No birds. No insects. Just the sound of wind like whispers through bone. Marin muttered, "This place doesn't breathe right." Malric nodded. "Because it's not alive. It's remembering." Rosamund stepped lightly, fingers twitching near her dagger. "This is where Nyara ran?" she asked. "This is where she became," Malric corrected. They reached the edge of a ravine, so wide and deep that no natural formation could have carved it. Something magical had torn this land in half. An ancient bridge arched across the chasm, built from the bones of trees and bound together with glowing green witchrunes that pulsed faintly under their steps. Rosamund paused halfway across and looked down. Far below, a sea of mirror shards glimmered, thousands of broken reflections that moved slowly, like they were trying to look back up at her. "I don't like this," she whispered. Eric took her hand. "Stay close." As they stepped off the bridge, the air shifted. The trees opened into a wide, dead clearing. At the center, a ruined throne, wrapped in ivy and spider silk, draped in veils of bone-white lace. And sitting upon it, motionless, was a woman in a tattered black gown. She did not blink. She did not breathe. She waited. They approached slowly. The woman's skin was the color of wax. Her lips were darkened with old blood. Her eyes were closed, but tears of black ink streaked down her cheeks. "Is she alive?" Marin asked. "She's dreaming," Malric said softly. "She has been for years." Rosamund stepped closer. "Nyara." The woman's eyes flew open. They were entirely white. "You wear the bond," Nyara said. Her voice was layered, like three voices speaking at once. Eric raised his blade instinctively. Nyara smiled faintly. "Child of Ashbane. Child of Thornfire. You've come to break the world." "We came to stop the gate," Rosamund said. "Too late," Nyara replied. "The fifth seal has already cracked." Nyara stood slowly, her movements like drifting smoke. "I carried the fifth seal in my blood," she said. "Until I bled it out, to forget." "Where is it now?" Eric asked. Nyara touched her own chest. "Inside me still. But corrupted. You can't seal the gate. Only choose who walks through first." Rosamund stepped forward. "You opened it once. What did you see?" Nyara's white eyes narrowed. "A world with no names. No time. Only hunger in the shape of a god." Malric asked quietly, "Then why live? Why wait here in rot and ruin?" Nyara smiled, slow and grim. "Because one day, someone would come wearing the bond again. Someone the gate would listen to. And I needed to see if you'd be weak." Eric stepped forward. "We're not weak." Nyara moved suddenly, appearing in front of him, inches away, her breath cold as frost. "No," she said. "But you are tempted." From the folds of her dress, Nyara pulled something wrapped in cloth. She unwrapped it carefully and revealed a crown made of thorns and broken mirror, bound together by dried blood and black thread. "The hollow crown," she whispered. "Forged from the memories of the founders. Meant to bind the gate shut, or break it wide." She handed it to Rosamund. "It will respond only to one who carries both bloodlines and the bond." Rosamund held it with shaking hands. The metal was warm. Too warm. And it pulsed with a rhythm that matched her own heartbeat. "What do I do with this?" she asked. Nyara turned toward the ravine. "When the sixth seal falls, you will know." And when the seventh breaks, you'll have to choose: hold the gate, or wear the crown. As the sky began to darken with stormlight, Nyara stepped back into her throne of ivy and whispers. Eric asked, "Will you help us stop it?" Nyara laughed, a sound like rain on a coffin. "I already did," she said. "I didn't kill you." She closed her eyes again. The veils began to fall around her. She returned to silence. To waiting. To memory. That night back at camp, Rosamund held the hollow crown in her lap, wrapped tightly, hidden from sight. She and Eric sat close together, silent under the stormlit sky. And far away, deep in the blood court's sanctum, Brionna received word from her spy. "They've retrieved the crown. The bonded pair still believe they can stop it." Brionna smiled. "Let them. When the time comes, they'll break the gate themselves."
Every tale you hear here leaves a mark on the world beyond. If this story stirred something in you, leave a like to weave your magic into ours. Share your thoughts in the comments. Every voice spins a new thread in the arcane tapestry. And subscribe to our YouTube channel Arcane Stories, where myths breathe, shadows speak, and destinies awaken. The next legend is already waiting for you.